Is Elder Scrolls Blades a sign of the bad things that are going to be happening in the future for AAA gaming?
I played it, we're gonna talk about it.
Hot take.
Elder Scrolls Blades is in early access, and it's been in early access. First, it was released on iOS early for folks, and then it was released on April 5th for everyone else, all the other filthy phone-using commoners. So since April 5th, people have had their hands on Elder Scrolls Blades, and it is a game that a lot of people have been waiting for because it is another entry in a franchise that people get excited about. Elder Scrolls, man. Ever since Elder Scrolls became more consoleized, a lot more people have been talking about it, right? Especially with Skyrim. Everyone talks about Skyrim because Skyrim's on everything.
Yes, it is, like everywhere. But that's one of the problems. When you want to bring it to cell phones, things have to change, and sometimes those things aren't for the better.
Yep.
Now, Adam and I have talked about mobile games in the past, and we both have played a lot of mobile games. I remember when the original iPhone started to allow downloadable applications and even some hacked ones. There was a bunch of games that are being released on the platform. But at the beginning of things, games were being sold. Now, games are given away for free, and they're putting monetization structures on top of it, and the game has to be worked around that way. And then you get Elder Scrolls Blades.
Well, let's dive into Elder Scrolls Blades a little bit. Do a tiny bit of a review before diving into maybe what these sort of monetization platforms could mean for gaming and these AAA sort of IP coming to the cell phone platform as a whole in the future.
Sure.
So Elder Scrolls Blades, in the game, you play as one of the Blades. The Blades are a group of like warriors that have been disbanded at the beginning of this experience. You go home to your hometown. The place is decimated. This horrible queen has basically unleashed. I don't want to get too deep into the storyline, but something has been
unleashed. She's unleashed a plot.
She's unleashed a MacGuffin. Yeah. and yes, the whole town's decimated, and it's your responsibility to go questing and to help rebuild this town from scratch. You can already kind of hear monetization knocking on the door with having to rebuild the town, but we'll get to that a little bit later. There is some good here. There was some sort of enjoyable aspects of this of the title. Looks pretty good. For a cell phone game, looks pretty good. It looks like an Elder Scrolls game running on a cell phone. I was running this on my Galaxy S8. Why are you shaking your head already? Let me go. Let me go. Okay. So I was playing this on my Galaxy S8, not the newest phone ever. It ran okay. I noticed some hiccups, some sort of like framiness going on. The experience as a whole, it very much feels like a cell phone game. I remember when Todd Howard got on stage and was showing off Blades a tiny bit at the last E3, right? And he was basically saying, no, this is a full Elder Scrolls game on your phone. And it's free to play. Aren't you excited? It doesn't feel like a full Elder Scrolls game. He was fibbing.
Yeah.
It's very much like you go into town, you talk to people, you can take jobs, you can go on quests. There's not this big sprawling map that you're going from one section to the other and stuff and seeing the whole wide open world.
So what you're telling me is it's not a free exploration game like what the past Elder Scrolls games have been.
Exactly, but I don't think that's necessarily detrimental, or that would be detrimental in a game, especially a cell phone game. It's bite-sized little things. It's like, hey, here's your mission. You have to go into this crypt and, let's say, get a couple things for a fetch quest or whatever. You accept it immediately. You're there. You do what you have to do. Most of your quests are a few minutes long, and then it's done. It's bite-sized. It's good for picking it up on the bus or whatever, playing through a couple of jobs or quests, getting some gold and some other things, and then heading back to town and, kind of continuing the grind that is an RPG, right? So that's cool. I like that things are bite-sized. Other things are great. Soundtrack's nice. Elder Scrolls is known to have very pretty music, so that's good too. So, even though I did enjoy some aspects of the game, I felt like there was a pretty quick cutoff of enjoyment for me there because the monetization stuff very quickly started to poke up its ugly little head. Now, this is a free-to-play game, and there has to be...
expect it to be there, yeah.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of a monetization platform. Where Todd Howard had, where he was interviewed after showcasing the Elder Scrolls Blades at E3, he had said, okay, well, I hope that this is going to be monetized, of course, because it's free to play. But I hope that it's the monetization is done very gingerly. Just a little touch here or there, so people feel like they're getting a lot out of the game without having to dish out a lot of money. But it seems like almost every aspect of what you have to do within the game, it has some sort of a paywall eventually, right? So you're rebuilding a town. What do you have to do when you rebuild a town?
Well, Adam, I guess you're gonna have to buy houses, and buildings.
Yeah. So okay, it is the trickle that you'd expect. At first, you finish like your first mission, then they're like, oh, we should rebuild the town hall. It's like, oh, okay, we'll rebuild the town hall. They're like, oh, great, you got wood on your last quest. That's perfect. That's what we need. So it's like, bam, 10 seconds, town hall's up. The town hall is generally a big building, right? 10 seconds, it's done. It's pretty impressive.
Fast people.
But you know what, man?
Magic.
Magic. The more that you build up your town, like, of course, you rebuild some other things that are important, like the blacksmith shop. Oh, that takes a little bit longer. Takes a little bit longer, a little more resources.
Does it? Yeah.
Yeah. The building's it's not even a building per se at the very beginning. It's just like the outside of a building, but it took a little longer than the town hall. And then you're rebuilding other people's like homes and other places as well. And slowly you're starting to see, oh, okay, well, yeah, the time limit is going up, possibly some more resources than you'd like to spend on some of these places as well.
Let me ask you this.
Yes.
When's the last time you played it?
The last time I played it was like maybe 40 minutes ago.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there something you're waiting for it to complete right now?
You know the answer to this. So, okay, a big part of an RPG, especially like a dungeon crawling RPG, is that you get loot, right? And oftentimes you go to a chest within like a dungeon or something, and then you open it up, and then you get some new armor and stuff. There are chests in Elder Scrolls, and they work very much. If you asked me how do you think of chests in a free-to-play mobile game, I would have basically said what this is, and I mean that not in a positive way at all.
Sure.
So Elder Scrolls Blades has different levels of chests that you can open. There's the regular ones.
Just call them loot crates.
Yeah, okay. It's basically it. There's the regular ones. Those take 5 seconds to open. There are the silver ones. I don't want to go into all of because there's so many different factors.
The more there are, the more time it takes.
The more there are, the more time it takes, and you can cut back on that time by spending gems. And gems are what you'd imagine. It's something that you can earn through jobs and quests, but you can also, of course, pay to get a bunch of gems so that you can spend them. Yeah.
And so the game is bad, and that's all that there is. Because, see, this is the biggest problem I have. If a game rewards you for sitting far enough away from it and not playing it, then the game was never good in the first place.
In fact, I think one of my chests is still the timer's still going on one of my chests as is, because it takes roughly 3 hours to open the second highest tier chest. So the second lowest tier chest, I should say, the silver chest. The problem is, I mean, that's already a problem, but when you're opening one chest and waiting for the timer to go, you can't open any of the other ones, even like regular chests and stuff. So they want you to spend gems to open other chests while the first chest is waiting to be opened. It's very frustrating in that way.
So all I'm hearing is this.
Yes.
Instead of making a game that was really fun to play, that maybe they put an upfront cost to purchase or some other mechanic, whatever, they instead have artificially dampened the game's enjoyment by putting a paywall amongst certain items that the only way to get past is to just wait.
Yeah. And
why would that is so bad.
Some people may come back and say, well, it's not that bad. What about the combat? Maybe the combat's really cool and the way that you engage with other characters is great. I found the combat to be quite shallow, to be honest. I mean, Elder Scrolls has never been known for, great combat as far as like parrying and doing different moves is concerned. Sure. It's very much an RPG, right? Kind of like a wait and attack sort of thing. So the way that it's integrated within the game itself, it's a lot of, to like swipe your weapon, you have to hold down on your screen, and then there's a circle indicator, and if you hit it at the right time, you can have a more powerful hit. It feels sloppy, and sometimes you're like, oh man, I missed that hit, and you have to wait for the next one. And then you also have spells and stamina related moves as well. Again, it's just touchscreen gameplay. I'm not a big fan of, man.
Look, folks, you might be wondering why I'm not saying much here. It's because I refuse to play the game.
Shane will play it.
Yeah, I have already played several games like this in the past, and the moment they get to a point where they have to make you wait or they ask for money from you, I stopped playing because they didn't make a game that was enjoyable and fun to play. There are games out there that are free to play, like Apex Legends and Fortnite, that are largely cosmetic items. They don't actually affect the way that you play the game, and that's fine. I don't really care too much about that. But in general, what I really don't like is this kind of gameplay, this kind of concept, and this kind of philosophy. Now, here's the thing. It's a bad game. You might like it, and you're wrong. It's a bad game because the fact that you have to wait, the fact that you're sitting here right now and the game is still playing with you not being there means that they made a game that doesn't need you to be there to actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go about it any way you want,
Right,
but that's just
right.
that's what it says to me.
Yeah, to me, there are so many things that could have been tweaked to possibly change that. If like waiting for a chest, you could wait, like the silver chest can be put aside and you can open your other stuff at the same time. Maybe it would feel a little less egregious to me, but as it is right now, yeah, combined with the lackluster combat, the story that is like, whatever, there's a couple characters that are a little bit interesting, but it does very much feel like a shell of what Elder Scrolls should be. I'm not getting that. Like when I think of an Elder Scrolls game, I'm not even like one of the hugest Elder Scrolls fans per se, but I just feel like when I played Skyrim for the first time, just that feeling of absorption into the world, right? Like, oh, I'm going to go questing and I'm going to talk to all these people. I'm going to read all these books. I'm going to collect all the cheese wheels. You don't really do that in this game. It feels very shallow, and it very much feels like it is being made like just being made to kind of like get you to those paywalls.
That's what it is.
I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. The game feels like you're constantly like they're constantly pushing you along. Okay, I didn't talk to you about this yet, Shane. There's an indicator that while you're doing a quest, while you're in a dungeon or whatever, there's an indicator. It's like a little blue mist that's kind of guiding you along every 5 or 6 seconds or so. It's like they're continuously pushing you. No, go ahead. Complete this. Get to the next part. Get closer to what is the paywall eventually that you're gonna wind up hitting. There's gonna be a barrier where you're like, okay, I can still play this for free, but it's getting to the point where I have to wait a few hours if I really want to unlock more of like the storyline per se. Because if you want to continue on with the storyline, you do have to meet like certain perimeters. Your town does need to sort of be built up to certain sections for you to continue on. So it's not like you can like, oh, whatever, I'll just leave that stuff and just continue on with the story. No, there are walls that you'll hit.
Yeah. Well, it just sounds like terrible.
So
why is this a bad thing?
Right.
Okay.
We wanted to talk about more than just a review here. We wanted to talk about AAA gaming in cell phones, and if the Elder Scrolls Blades is an indicator or a forecast for what AAA gaming could be in the future, because that's kind of what this game was being touted as by Todd Howard back when this was first shown off. This is going to be a premium Elder Scrolls experience. We also have another premium experience coming to cell phones in the form of Diablo Immortal.
Yes.
So, yeah, what do you think about this? Is this the weather forecast for where gaming will be going in the future? Do you think? Here we go.
Here's the problem with everything that just happened and transpired at this moment. The fact that Adam isn't playing it right now because he really isn't enjoying it anymore means that he doesn't enjoy it, which also means that the damage has been done to the brand of the Elder Scrolls franchise for him. When the next game comes out, he's likely not going to be as happy to play that game because he remembers playing Blades.
Yeah.
And who would blame him?
Even if I don't remember that, I still have it like instinctually.
It's right there. It's right there. So here is the problem. Diablo Immortal and all those other games are going to be coming out that take larger franchises and try to make them mobile. When you take a game like that and it becomes a success, suddenly all the investors, everyone in the company wants that game to franchise to continue in some way. The problem is these games live and die by the moment and they cannot be a success for long term. There is no game out there that was started all the way back that has managed to continue. Before this episode started, we took a look at some companies from the past that actually tried to do these kind of mobile type games that had some kind of microtransactions and stuff. but they didn't find much success, or they ended up closing down. Rovio is a good example of a company that saw massive losses. They're the people that created Angry Birds, and they started not really selling their games, but going to a free-to-play model where you get the game, you pay for more levels and all that kind of stuff. Eventually it rolled to a point where people just stopped playing it altogether, because the concept was that on mobile games, at least, that there is no value to the games that are being released, because everything was starting to be given away for free to get to the top of the sales charts or the top of the download charts. Not really a good thing to happen. The next thing that happened was we had a company called Zynga. Does everybody remember Zynga?
I remember
They were
Zynga.
big. They were supposed to be the biggest game company on the planet. Everyone was talking about them.
For a little while, they're doing very well.
They had several studios all across the globe, and pretty much all of them have shut down. They had a massive problem, and one of the biggest reasons was that they were doing these kind of scummy tactics in games. They weren't focusing on making good games first. They're focusing on basically monetizing the gamer and bleeding them dry. There are two ways this works out. You can bleed someone dry, but eventually they get dry and they don't have anything else to bleed from anymore, so they are completely unmonetizable. Once you reach that point, suddenly you burn people out. And those people that get burnt out don't like the game anymore. They hate the game and they hate the franchise. So what you're going to do with Elder Scrolls is you're going to bleed a bunch of people who are going to hate the franchise so much that it's going to cause this disservice, this hatred for the franchise, and you're going to break the brand in general. The same thing's going to happen with Diablo, because what you're going to do is you're going to make so many people angry that you've kind of just hurt the franchise in such this dramatic way.
Yeah, it can go that way, but it can also go another way where, like, okay, let's say Diablo Immortal, it's going free to play. It's going to be a free to play title, just like the Elder Scrolls Blades is. If it is extremely successful and it does very well, which it's forecast to do, because maybe our viewers don't know this, Diablo 3 was released in China as a free to play game, and it did very, very well. So that's basically, in my opinion, why Immortal is going free to play. It is mostly for more so the Chinese market than it is for the North American market. If that makes money hand over fist, let's say, how invested would that company be in continuing the franchise in its sort of other form factor? It's $60 or to $80 regular package, right? The same thing with Blades. If Blades does, by the way, Blades is still in early access and is already up to $500,000 in revenue over just a few days that it's been up in US dollars. If Blades does really, really well, we know Elder Scrolls 6 is coming. First of all, will there be an Elder Scrolls 7 if Blades does extremely, extremely well and 6 doesn't do quite as well? Or will we start seeing the trickle of other sort of monetization aspects into Elder Scrolls 6? We know that Bethesda is not scared of doing that, because you have a game that you hate that they made that was released this summer.
Yeah.
Fallout 76. Fallout 76 was, you had to pay for the whole package, right?
You had to pay for the whole thing.
And then they were like, oh, we're just going to do a little bit of monetization with some customization stuff for your characters and some stuff that you can have for like your whatever trinkets in your house or whatever.
Wherever the heck.
But now we're hearing murmurs, confirmed, I shouldn't even say murmurs, confirmed, it's been confirmed that there's going to be other monetization aspects that are not cosmetic coming to Fallout 76. So we're already seeing the same company like dabbling with these weird sort of revenue. So it's like
Fallout 76 is just a train wreck, no matter how you swing it, and that's never going to work out for them. But see, they didn't build Fallout from the beginning. They bought a kind of successful, at least well-known franchise, and then they built upon that. Elder Scrolls, that's their bread and butter. They are a company because of that game series. And if they manage to break that series, it's going to cause problems. Now, I know there's a bunch of you out there talking about Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go has been out for a very long time. It's seen massive success, and they're still making Pokemon games, and people don't seem to be angry that one exists over the other. But you got to keep this in mind. Pokemon is old. It's been there forever. It's established. It had so many games. It had a television show, cards. There's movies. There's clothing. There's food. There's a Pokemon restaurant. Did you know that? Because there is one. Several.
That doesn't surprise me.
Look, there are a lot of Pokemon things. So a mobile game being a success isn't that far out there, but the thing is, they're not giving up on making the good franchises that they initially made. And the thing is, though, that they have to be careful about what they do, because Pokemon Go being such a success, it does tell the people at the company, Well, if one of the Pokemon main series games doesn't work out, not that big of a deal, now we have Go, and it can completely change the dynamic of what they've made. Remember, the Pokemon company doesn't care about the games or the movies or the cards or anything like that. They care about the Pokemon. Their business is selling the characters, not the things that the characters go on top. If Pokemon company was just known for selling shoes with Pikachu on it, that's all they would do, and they would be successful at it because they've made a brand and identity that you've fallen in love with. Who's the main character in Elder Scrolls?
Your random avatar.
Good. Doesn't work. Do you see what I'm trying to say here?
For me, it's an elf named Adam, and he's very tall.
Elder Scrolls is a brand, but that brand doesn't have close associations with characters.
Right.
See, this is something that doesn't work very well. Now, of course, there's like certain kind of enemies and stuff like that.
There are characters, and there are weapons,
Sure. But it looks
There's
like
no
stuff,
Pikachu.
No. It looks like stuff from Lord of the Rings. It looks like stuff from any medieval fantasy. At least with Fallout, you've got characters that largely stand out. The Vault, the Vault characters, the Vault Boy, Pip-Boy. You got all these like items and things that are unique to those things. Elder Scrolls, it's a sword. It's a book of spells. It's a gnome. It's a goblin. It's an orc. Do you know what I'm saying? Those things already existed. They don't own the property on those things. They're already medieval type ideas. So with this Elder Scrolls game, by making this happen, they're going to damage their brand, and people are not going to want to be invested in the next thing. And we've already talked about Fallout 76 not doing so hot.
Yeah.
If they screw up the next Elder Scrolls, they're going to burn their bridges with their consumers to a point that they're not going to want to be invested in their next thing. So they have to be a lot more secure and a lot more safe with what they're doing. And Blades is not a good idea because it looks like the only thing that they're really focusing on is monetizing the gamer rather than making the game fun.
Again, early access, so things could be changing, but right now things just seem so embedded in the game in a certain way to get you to spend money, not just in one way, but in several. That I don't see everything being dialed back completely, even though they're still kind of weighing things.
Look, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I thought about this a little bit. Let's say they offered you an option to pay for this game for $60. You'd never have to put another dime into it whatsoever. If you could do that, do you think the game would be worth it?
I don't think it's a $60 product. If you came to me and said it was $20, I'd buy it.
So it's worth money, would you say?
I would say it's worth money.
Yeah?
Sure.
So they removed all the timing and all that stuff, then it's a good game? See? The fact that it's that hard to think about, the fact that you can't say yes or no.
There's so many other stipulations to it. Like I was going to say, well, you'd basically have to rebuild the game. I'd be like, okay, so
then they'd have to make another game because the one they made isn't good.
Because there's a lot of repeat assets. Like I said, the questing, the general like the storyline, the quest line is so thin. It would have to be a far more built up and enticing product, and maybe that's their plan, is that this thing is going to be built up so much more over time. We do know that there are things that are not yet live, like the arena mode and stuff, and it has some growth to be done there. But oh man, the monetization model just has me so turned off at this point.
Did you play Skyrim?
Yes.
You played Oblivion?
I dabbled with Oblivion.
But you played Skyrim?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What's better, Blades or Skyrim?
What version of Skyrim? All of them?
Skyrim version 1 with all the bugs and the head disappears off the main character.
How about the April Fool's joke that was like Alexa with Skyrim on it?
No,
I still think that's better.
I still think that's better.
Yeah,
look, folks. What these companies need to be doing is making good games.
Yeah.
At the cost of the consumer, consumers just want to okay. The best way I can explain this is when you look at let's just take movies for an example with the Marvel films that are going on. If all the Marvel movies sucked, they wouldn't be successful. They'd be DC films. So like, there's this really important thing that's going on where they think that their brands are more successful because they just simply exist or because they are there, but that's not the fact of the matter. Yeah. They have to make sure that the games are good. Now look, you can have a mistake once in a while, okay? Just having one bad game doesn't ruin the entire batch. We've had Redguard. We've had Elder Scrolls games that were not very good. There's like 3 people out there that really like those Elder Scrolls games from the past that were not so great. But look, what I'm trying to say, is that if they are so gung-ho on making this one game kind of mediocre, but for whatever reason it does make this massive success and it earns them a lot of money, it's going to make a lot of money for all the wrong reasons, and it's going to damage the brand. Even at being a successful game, it can cause problems. And another thing to take into consideration with a lot of these games that have these pay mechanics on them and stuff like that, the actual infrastructure to make that ends up costing, and to sustain it, ends up costing a lot of money. The more money it costs, the more manpower it takes to keep something like that going. You actually lose that over time. So let's just look at Fortnite right now. Fortnite was massive, but now it's starting to lose players. And as it loses players, the actual cost that it took to keep it sustainable at that big range starts to become a much bigger cost because you're losing players as you go along.
And as the scope sort of shrinks. There's going to be less content for people to latch onto, and then less players because of that, and then they'll have to have less of a work team, and it just continues to sort of funnel into this a tiny speck until the project as a whole just kind of disappears.
And this here can be a much bigger problem when you think about it, because when you look at how these games exist, there's only like a finite amount of people out there that are actually playing these games. So when you look at something like Fortnite that's starting to lose in popularity as Apex Legends rises and stuff like that, that's happening because those gamers are leaving one thing to go play something else. So the moment that these gamers on mobile phones are playing one game and they're just like, this is really neat, kind of cheap, but it's really neat, they'll find another game and they'll move off from that. All it takes is for one company to switch the table and really mess things up. And we know that many of these games, like Blades, are only successful because they have whales playing them. And whales basically are people that have all this money to spend, but eventually they do stop and move to another game.
If you ever wonder who the heck would spend $200 on the super duper chest hero pack for all those gems, those are designed specifically for people that do typically have a problem and just love the sort of immediate reward that they get. They're the pleasure sensors.
It gets to a point where it's basically just gambling, and that's not a good thing.
Right.
Look, the games I like are the ones that have skill and fun, time and effort put into them, that are clearly something that are made for the passion and joy of making a video game and to be experienced. But when it comes to these games that are basically gambling simulators, you're going to get to the point where, well, we already know the government's kind of trying to get rid of them because they're not good. And if they don't get rid of them, they're going to be heavily monetized or regulated. And when they get regulated, the next thing that happens is that it costs a lot more to keep these games going, and then you have to make sure kids aren't playing them. And then suddenly, your Elder Scrolls game stops being a game for everyone and starts being a game for adults, and then parents are going to be like, Elder Scrolls, isn't that gambling game? Well, you're not allowed to play that. And the next Elder Scrolls game comes out and then no one's going to buy it because kids can't get it. Guys, think about what you're doing right now, because these choices you're making are going to define the next couple of years. And if you screw it up, suddenly companies like Bethesda that put all their money into a game like this will not exist anymore.